While Greenfield gets ready to connect to mass transit through a proposed expansion of rail service, it's easy to forget that Franklin County had a wide range of public transportation systems and networks using electric trolleys in the early part of the 20th century. This same technology is mirrored today in many places around the world. GCTV visited the Shelburne Falls Trolley Museum to find out more about the simple mechanics that hauled people and goods throughout the hill towns.
Here in Shelburne Falls and Coleraine, on the Shelburne Falls and Coleraine Street Railway, they were primarily used as a way of moving freight from farms and factories down to the mainline railroads, because at this point, at the turn of the 20th century, all of the main railroads had been built, and any villages or towns that wanted a connection to rail had to come up with these little electric railways to make the connection from point A to point B. A horse and wagon really slowed things down tremendously. And once the possibility of electric traction came along, it didn't take long for groups of people to get together and form corporations to establish these little lines between the towns, the factories, and the main railroads. The part that we're in right now is the passenger compartment, where I'm sitting, and then further down the car in that direction is an open compartment where they would put freight. It's a small one. And so the company also owned some of its own box cars and a heavier freight motor, heavier than car number 10. And that was used, once the concrete bridge was built across the river, that was used to haul more freight from point A to point B. They hauled a lot of freight and brought most of it up here to the old freight house, which still exists.
Even though the trolleys offered a slightly bumpy ride compared to today's standards, it was still a better alternative to horse or foot power, and it was what travelers at the time knew. It also had its own social customs and etiquette to keep relations between customers cordial and smooth.
A housewife on a Saturday morning would say, "I'm going to Shelburne Falls. I will take the car." This was the only car that they knew. There were no automobiles. When people are sitting in a subway or a trolley across from each other, it is not polite to look at somebody in the eye. In fact, it might be threatening. So you look up, and what do you see? All the beautiful advertisements of all the other things that you can do or see.
Powered through local and sustainable means, the trolleys were not only easy to operate, but also easy to repair. Most of the equipment consists of basic workshop tools and is operated by hand.
So it's essentially an all-electric vehicle that doesn't have to carry batteries or anything with it. It just uses the overhead wire and a pole on the roof with a little wheel on the end of the pole, which rolls along underneath the wire. And that's actually where a trolley car gets its name, because that wheel is called a trolley wheel. It rolls along underneath the wire, kind of like trolling for fish behind a boat. The wire, overhead wire, brings 300, in our case, 300 volts DC to the trolley car, which comes down into the controllers that are on each end of the car. The controllers have handles on them that the motorman can use to control the direction and speed of the car. The controls on the notches on the controller adjust the amount of resistance and big resistors underneath the trolley. This is kind of old technology, but it's not that different from how it's done in modern locomotives. This trolley car has a big motor that you probably won't be able to see mounted behind on the axle of this front wheel, and another one on the axle of the rear wheel that drive the wheels pretty much directly from there. There's no transmission or anything like that here. The motors directly drive the wheels. It's the same way that the big locomotives that go by here operate, but they have diesel generators on them to provide their electricity instead of the overhead wire. The power for this trolley line originally came from Frankton Mills, which is where their shops were. They had a hydroelectric plant there, a dam, and a turbine that drove a generator, and it probably generated the DC directly. Right off of that. In later years, they bought their power from the power company, but the power company actually installed a DC generator in the hydro plant right here in Shelburne Falls specifically for the trolley line. And then at some point in between those times, they also had a coal-fired, steam-powered generator up at Frankton Mills.
We have been places where they have built these electric railways out into the middle of nowhere. We come back 5 years later and there are apartment houses all up around them. It's a matter of you build them and they will come, because they are so efficient and comfortable a way, especially when you get a little bit more technology underneath you than what we have here.
You can see the equipment for yourself, ride the trolleys and pump car, and learn about trolleys and how they were a popular, sustainable, and locally powered transportation system by visiting the Shelburne Falls Trolley Museum. Visit them online for details at sftm.org or call 413-625-9443. And check back to gctv.org for more ongoing community coverage.